set up here. So first, I'd like to thank my committee, Dr. Savick, Dr. Durham, and Dr. Dolan. And I'd also like to thank all of my wonderful family and friends who are here supporting me today. So what is culturally responsive teaching and learning? The framework that I used in this study has grown out of a history of scholarship and practice of successful teaching of what we now refer to as racially, culturally, and linguistically diverse students. We can point to Carter Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro, the successful education that happened despite segregation, pre-Brown versus Board of Ed, multicultural education, ethnic studies, asset-based pedagogies, social justice education, culturally sustaining pedagogy, anti-racist pedagogy, as the foundation and the continuum of culturally responsive teaching and learning. The framework that I used was based primarily on the work of Gloria Ladson-Billings and Geneva Gay, which states that students and educators should experience academic achievement, cultural competency, socio-political consciousness, and all of that through critical self-reflection. The Culturally Responsive Teaching and Learning Program is a professional program that has been offering workshops at my institution since 2006. I wanted to follow up with the faculty participants to see what they did with the knowledge they had gained. The CRTLS, or the Culturally Responsive Teaching and Learning Seminar, is a week-long seminar in cultural pedagogy and practice. Topics include the meanings of culture and race, growth mindset and culture, overcoming stereotype threat, addressing implicit bias, examining the history of white supremacist ideology, and how that has impacted educational systems. A review of the literature shows that faculty may have positive beliefs about diversity, but they may not have developed the confidence or the knowledge to implement teaching practices that reflect cultural competence, since becoming a culturally responsive educator takes time and support. College faculty are subject matter experts, but they may not have had any training in pedagogy, in teaching theories or practices. And while there are several studies on the effects of culturally responsive teaching and its connection to improved student outcomes in K-12 as well as college classrooms, more research is needed on professional learning that supports faculty in becoming culturally responsive educators by addressing both their beliefs about diversity and their behaviors. And finally, this study sought to further validate and therefore protect and defend teaching to and through culture and cultural differences to create anti-racist classrooms, especially in the current climate where diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is coming under attack, and especially in higher ed. So why study beliefs and behaviors? Beliefs are strong and sticky. Beliefs about teaching form early, before future teachers have even finished school. And beliefs don't always translate into behaviors. Sometimes we find ourselves acting in familiar ways, falling into habitual behavior that might not actually reflect our strongly held beliefs. And this can result from having unexamined biases. This conflict between our beliefs and our behaviors creates cognitive dissonance, which we sometimes explain away instead of reconciling. So I wanted to know how the teaching behaviors of CRTL faculty alumni aligned with their beliefs. So these were the research questions I investigated. How often do seminar faculty implement CRTL teaching practices? And does that implementation of teaching practices associated with CRTL vary by race, gender, academic school, teaching experience, or time since participation in the seminar? What were the seminar faculty attitudes and professional beliefs about diversity? How do the teaching practices of seminar faculty align with their attitudes and beliefs about diversity? And finally, in what ways do the seminar faculty report that the program impacted their teaching practices? So first, I sent surveys to 114 faculty who had attended the seminar and were still working at the college. I had 52 responses, and here's how they break down by gender and race and ethnicity. And there was a nice balance of teaching experience and years since the seminar. And this is how they broke down according to academic school. So to address the first question, how often do seminar faculty implement CRTL teaching practices? I created the CRTL practices scale, which was based on observation protocols for culturally responsive teaching and also on the topics that we addressed in the seminar. The survey asked how often faculty implemented techniques like connecting course content to civic engagement, asking students to share about their cultures, including representation from diverse cultures in the course materials, or using growth mindset techniques like revision and multiple measures of assessment. Most CRTL faculty alumni were employing these practices. Research confirms that by attending professional learning does prompt faculty to enact research-based, student-centered teaching practices. There was no significant difference in the implementation of CRTL practices according to faculty gender, race, ethnicity, time teaching, or time since the seminar. But there was a variation according to which academic school the faculty was from. Faculty in the School of Math and Science were less likely to report that they were using culturally responsive teaching practices than faculty in the School of Writing, Literacy, and Languages or faculty in the School of Wellness, Education, Behavioral, and Social Sciences. This is probably due to the school policies in the School of Math and Science around assessment, and that was validated in the faculty interviews. It also could be related to the belief that math and science are somehow culture neutral. Also, in the faculty interviews, it was confirmed that faculty in the School of Writing, Literacy, and Languages and Wellness, Education, Behavioral, and Social Sciences have more latitude in their course content. So faculty could build in discussion of culture, equity, and diversity. To address the second question, I used two separate scales. The middle Guzman Universality Diversity Scale measured the extent to which respondents are able to recognize both the universal human condition as well as appreciate cultural differences arising from diverse experiences among groups. These results are associated with a positive inclination toward cultural competence. The presence of a highly diverse student body at the college may also explain faculty's positive attitudes toward diversity, as exposure to diverse others is associated with more positive attitudes about diversity. And as the research has found, when faculty are exposed to the stories of their students, they become more inclined toward positive attitudes toward diversity. The second scale I used, the Professional Beliefs About Diversity scale, included items like the value of having diverse teachers, the value of teachers understanding diverse religions, and whether standardized tests are related to racial segregation. Results, again, show positive professional beliefs about diversity, and also showed that most faculty were aware of the inequities within the educational systems in the United States. To address the third question, how do teaching practices of CRTLS faculty align with their attitudes and beliefs about diversity? The results showed that there was a moderate positive correlation. There was slightly more alignment between personal attitudes and behaviors than professional attitudes and behaviors. And the interviews and the mixed method analysis will help to explain why the beliefs and behaviors were only moderately aligned. So after looking at the survey data, I then turned to interviewing faculty. So 15 faculty agreed to be interviewed after taking the survey. 73% were women, 27% men, 48% were white, 27% Black, 13% South Asian, and 8% identified as multiracial. And I asked them a series of questions about their teaching practice and how they saw themselves applying what they had learned from the seminar. I organized the themes from the interview according to the CRTL framework. So almost half of the faculty specifically described their understanding of culture as a broad range of identities, including race, ethnicity, gender identity, socioeconomic status, ability, age, and learning preferences. All faculty recognized that the student population at this large metropolitan community college was extremely diverse, and that these cultural differences were salient in the learning environment. 10 faculty interviewees directly described how they cultivated students' cultural competence. Many faculty made the connection between the students' cultural competence and their academic success, their career readiness, and their civic engagement. Most faculty made specific comments related to their understanding of the particular conditions that many of today's college students face. Community college students are often non-traditional students. They attend part-time, they're more likely to be low income or Pell eligible. They're older, they have work and family responsibilities. Faculty reported that understanding their students' lives influenced how they taught, and that the seminar informed this understanding. More than half the faculty described specifically the ways in which they sought to build relationships with students through making personal connections. Getting to know students and their particular needs inspired faculty to use student-centered teaching practices like the funds of knowledge approach or applying the growth mindset techniques, intentionally representing diversity in the curriculum, using multiple measures of assessment, and implementing inclusive design principles. So culturally responsive teaching should result in students who are critically engaged with challenging the status quo that allows inequity to persist. Students should be empowered to critique racist systems. Some faculty reported that the seminar helped them to better understand issues around bias and inequity. And while the seminar faculty who I interviewed became more personally aware of inequity and bias, they showed a range of comfort from hesitancy to empowerment in expressing ideas about inequity in the classroom. Some faculty expressed an awareness of the need to examine the institution's commitment to equity across all diverse experiences. And overall, critical self-reflection allowed for examining, affirming, or challenging personal beliefs through a willingness to engage deeply and honestly with the topics we discussed in the workshops. Reflection also allowed for aligning personal beliefs to professional practice through what Geneva Gay calls RIQ, intentional reflection, interpretation, and inquiry of their teaching practice. So bringing together the quantitative and qualitative results for a mixed method analysis in this joint display really helped to explain why the alignment between faculty beliefs and behaviors was only moderately positive. So a lot of words on the screen, but follow me here. A mixed method analysis showed that the faculty beliefs about diversity and CRTL teaching practices were strongly aligned as they relate to the CRTL value of cultural competence at the top row. The survey results showed that faculty were interested in learning about and meeting people from other cultures and valued cultural diversity among faculty and students. And these beliefs aligned with the use of practices that included student culture in class discussions and course content, and also aligned with the interview data, describing how faculty developed their own and their students' cultural competence. Similarly, Similarly, we can see the alignment in beliefs and behaviors for academic success. A majority of people believe that faculty should adjust their teaching to address student needs, which is over here on the right, which aligns with the reported use of CRTL practices and with what the faculty said in the interviews about adapting to student particular needs. But when we look at sociopolitical consciousness, we begin to see some dissonance. Faculty professional beliefs are generally high for items associated with sociopolitical consciousness, like recognizing bias on race, based on race or socioeconomic status. But when we look at teaching practices associated with sociopolitical consciousness, we see some of the lowest reported frequency of use, especially for connecting course content to civic engagement. That was the lowest reported use. So examining the results of this study helped me to identify these complex relationships among the central tenets of CRTL. The most predominant theme among the 15 faculty who were interviewed was that they became more aware of and more responsive to the particular cultural experiences of their students, and how that knowledge informed the way they supported academic success. Faculty discussed how their awareness of students' economic and educational backgrounds informed their teaching practices and policies, such as providing scaffolding for assignments, or scheduling due dates, or providing multiple measures of assessment. Awareness of students' cultural backgrounds prompted faculty to invite those cultural perspectives into the classroom, contributing to building supportive relationships. Another important and complex relationship was that reflecting on their beliefs about diversity and their own cultural backgrounds and their own biases helped faculty to understand the intersection of their cultural beliefs and their teaching practices. They reported being more mindful of the differences between their own experiences and their students' experiences. And although the survey data showed a disconnect between beliefs and behaviors around sociopolitical consciousness, the interview data sheds more light on that relationship between sociopolitical consciousness and academic success. Faculty's own sociopolitical consciousness was expressed through their commitment to student success. Recognizing that many of their students face challenges related to their economic or educational backgrounds, faculty adjusted their teaching methods to foster student success through building relationships and relating course content to student experiences. Faculty in this study believe in the value of diversity and recognize that students from marginalized communities, whether due to race, ethnicity, or class, bring to the classroom unique cultural perspectives while also facing unique challenges. And many faculty enact social change through intentional course design. Faculty focused on improving outcomes for students through actions and policies that were within their direct control, such as building personal relationships, those assignment deadlines, assessments, methodology, and some content when they had control over it. So the results of this study point to several recommendations for professional learning programs in culturally responsive teaching and learning. These results suggest that these professional learning programs should include discipline-specific affinity groups so that faculty can examine their particular curricula and course policies through an equity lens. To foster positive attitudes toward diversity, it's recommended that professional learning programs adopt our seminar's emphasis on the power of getting proximal to diverse others. Throughout the seminar, faculty participants engage in sharing their stories, which serves as a model for incorporating cultural sharing in the classroom. The seminar encourages faculty to get to know the students in their classes as individuals, whether through classroom activities or through mentoring. The practice of reflection helps to resolve inconsistencies between beliefs and teaching practices, and it helps to improve teaching. Our seminar emphasizes faculty reflection on beliefs about culture, race, teaching experiences, and student experiences. And while faculty may personally believe in addressing inequity, they do not believe that teaching social action is part of their professional duty. Based on these results, the seminar should develop additional modules examining cognitive dissonance, which would encourage faculty to consider why their behaviors are in conflict with their beliefs. The program should also develop training in social justice education, anti-racist pedagogy, and education for civic engagement. As researchers have found, faculty awareness of social injustice was associated with their competency in cultural pedagogy. The seminar faculty who responded to the survey were inclined towards social justice awareness and implementing CRTL practices. The seminar includes an examination of the racial demographic data for students, faculty, staff, and administrative leadership at the college. The program also includes and encourages a historical perspective on race, racism, and white supremacist ideologies. These practices are recommended to foster greater awareness of inequitable systems among faculty. The study's results suggest that the seminar should include more intentional discussion of developing students' sociopolitical consciousness. A college education has long been associated with improving the lives of students by providing more economic opportunity. In this way, colleges are agents of social change. College graduates are expected to have critical thinking skills and advanced problem-solving skills. Faculty have been encouraged to connect their content with real-world applications. Given all these widely accepted views of the purpose of a college education, it should follow that colleges should prepare students to address the social problems of their day by becoming agents of social change. Thank you so much for all of your support.
All right. Thank you for sharing. At this point, I'd like to ask the PhD committee if they have any questions for Maura.
I mean, I'd like to know, and I'm also a Maura committee member, so this is really a wondering. You know, every study has limitations. We often think backward, like what would we have done differently? I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Sure. So some of the limitations were that the program itself was voluntary and taking the survey was voluntary. So there's a lot of positive bias, selection bias. People who are inclined to be part of this kind of work were the people who were inclined to complete the survey. So that's one limitation. I would have liked to ask, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would like to ask a more specific question about social action in the interviews to sort of pin down more specifically what some faculty were thinking.
Thank you. Or anything with your instrumentation, or any changes if you had a time machine?
For the joint display, no,
I mean your data collection techniques.
What the joint display showed me was that one thing that was missing were research item questions about critical self-reflection. In the CRTL practices scale, I didn't have any questions about how often do you reflect on your teaching practices. And since that was part of the framework, that was sort of a missing chunk.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from committee members?
She's got such a huge cadre of supporters here. And I'm guessing some of these are colleagues at CCBC. And Maura, we've talked about, you know, how this work, like Maura came in with very big ambitions about evaluating this program. And we're like, okay, look, you know, you got to lay some groundwork first. So, you know, maybe some of your team members want to ask you about how this can be used or, you know, elaborated upon going forward, what the next steps might be.
Yeah, I was wondering that myself.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Maybe they promised her they wouldn't ask any hard questions.
No, they can ask me anything. They know me. I can ask me anything.
Well, I just wanted to comment on this study and Maura's work here because it has certainly added to the body of knowledge about culturally responsive teaching and learning methods at the college level. But in addition to that, it's really specifically helped our college to assess a long-standing program that we knew intuitively was making change in our classrooms. But the work that Maura has done has really helped us to see not only what we've accomplished, but some areas that we can move into, as you discussed, Maura. So good work. That wasn't a question, I guess it was a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other happy outcome of this study is that I adapted the survey that I gave to faculty, and last semester gave a pilot to students, asking about their perceptions of CRTL teaching. We have other programs for students as well, and as we're collecting their reflections and their qualitative data, we're really able to match up like what faculty are doing, and then how students are perceiving what faculty are doing, and then how students, what students report that they need more of. And very early days data say that when students are encountering these culturally responsive teaching and learning workshops, all of the boxes for a sense of belonging are getting checked. They're building empathy. They feel connected to the campus. They feel like people understand where they're coming from. So that's pretty exciting, the connection between what the faculty have learned and then how it's filtering out to the students.